Hey, it's Owen. Good to see you again. Today we're comparing 3 generations of Pros: the iPhone 11 Pro, 12 Pro, and 13 Pro. So here's the thing. Even though at first appearance they share many similar traits, visual traits, matte glass textured back, stainless steel railings, and the darkest color available in their respective generations, these all have subtle differences and some not so subtle ones as well. So let's take a closer look. And really quickly, this is a brand new channel and it would really help the channel grow if you could take a moment, tap the like button and subscribe button down below. I would immensely appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. This iPhone 11 Pro in Space Gray is one of the darkest versions of Space Gray Apple has ever produced. It's a darker shade of gray compared to the graphite color of the 12 and 13 Pro. And all these phones have sides that are wrapped in surgical grade stainless steel, which gives the phones a jewelry-like quality, but can show fingerprints, partially more noticeable in the 12 and 13 Pro. The 11 Pro sides are darker, sometimes appearing black depending on the light, and the 12 and 13 have a much lighter color on the sides, often appearing gray, but sometimes appearing silver. And also on the side buttons for the 13 Pro this year, all the buttons have been moved down on the body. And on the back, the 12 and 13's graphite color is more of a medium gray. There's a very subtle difference between the two. The graphite on the 12 Pro has an ever so slightly green tint to it. And the graphite on the 13 Pro is more of like a medium gray that's also kind of a neutral gray. And out of the 3 colors, I definitely am more of a fan of the 13 Pro's version of graphite. It has a really refined and elegant quality to it. However, I do like the darker sides from the 11 Pro, and I feel the darker side colors really helps blend the front of the phone and helps limit any distractions when you're viewing your content. Putting these phones next to other Space Gray Apple products, you can see that it really doesn't match the color of any of these devices exactly. Rather, it's a range of different grays, even when most of these devices are named Space Gray. So maybe I'll have to do a video on the spectrum of Space Gray at some point. The iPhone 11 Pro is clearly the smallest phone here. Despite its size, it actually weighs almost the same as the iPhone 12 Pro. The 13 Pro, of course, is the thickest and heaviest of the 3. In fact, it's the heaviest regular sized iPhone ever produced. And to be honest, you really do notice it. Using it day to day, it's just not as comfortable as years past. Now, the iPhone 11 Pro is also the only phone that has rounded edges from previous design generations. The 12 and 13, on the other hand, had the latest, more industrialized, squared-off design language that Apple's been transitioning to in recent years. What that means is that the 11 Pro can sometimes be more comfortable in the hand, but the 12 and 13, you'll have more confidence because the squared edges really gives you something to hold on to, which I personally prefer. And you may want that extra grip because on the back, all 3 phones have a matte textured glass that has a really nice hand feel, but also can be quite slippery. However, there's a subtle difference between the textured feel of the 11 Pro compared to the 12 and 13 Pro. The 11 Pro has a slightly more pronounced texture, while the 12 and 13 have a smoother, almost softer, silkier type of texture. With that said, all of them have a really great and premium appearance and feel. Turning to the cameras, all these phones have 3 cameras on the back. The 11 and 12 have a similar look to them, but the 12 has an additional LiDAR sensor that honestly isn't all that useful on the day-to-day. Now the 13 Pro is where the camera bump goes from large to noticeably large. Visually, it sticks out from the body and takes up more than half of the width of the back. And to my eyes, it's a bit much on the way that it calls attention to itself. But that's the trade-off for better quality photos and videos. It's certainly less noticeable in this color, but would stand out even more in one of the lighter 13 Pro colors. Another consequence to the camera bump getting bigger is that the 13 Pro sits higher on the table, so it actually rocks back and forth much more than the 11 or the 12, which is something I'm sure you could get used to, but definitely not ideal. Turning the phone to the front, you can see right away the differences in screen size. The 11 Pro is still the previous generation's 5.8 inches versus the 6.1 inches of the 12 and 13 Pro. And it may sound like a minor size bump, but it's definitely a welcome change for a day and age when many of us are spending time at home working more than ever on these smaller devices. And the screen quality is amazing on all three phones, but the standout would definitely be the 13 Pro, receiving a brighter display and a 120Hz Pro Motion refresh rate for the very first time on an iPhone. So this means all your usual interactions in certain games will feel smoother and more fluid. Also on the front would be the notch, which is the same size in the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro, with the 13 Pro getting about a 20% smaller notch. One thing to note is that the smaller notch is smaller in width, but it's grown a little bit in height. So depending on what you're watching, this may actually cut a little bit more into your content. So at the end of the day, which phone is my personal favorite? I think I'm gonna have to give it to the 12 Pro. I'm a big fan of its squared off design and all of its refined details, and it's definitely more modern looking than the 11 Pro. And to me, as far as purely aesthetics goes, it definitely beats the bulkiness and the comically large camera bump of the 13 Pro. But I'm curious to know, what is your favorite? The 11, the 12, the 13 Pro? Please comment below to let me know. I hope you like this comparison, and if you want more Apple videos just like this one, hit that subscribe button, tap on the bell, and until we meet again, see you in the next one.